again. Tonight our presentation will be from Charles Salinas. He's the US Marshal for the Western District. He's also an East Ridge alumni, as my chief likes to point out. So is the chief, so it should be a good presentation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay.
Well, I want to thank Andrew and Chief Tantillo for inviting myself. This is my supervisor, Aaron Ward, and
Yep.
Thank you for what you do. Yep. We're going to spend the next hour or so to talk a little bit about the U.S. Marshal Service, what we do each and every day. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background, how I got to become the U.S. Marshal, and Aaron's going to talk about how he got to his position. As Chief said, I'm originally from Arundecoit. I graduated from East Ridge High School in 1982 and went to MCC for 2 years. And my father was a city fireman here in the city of Rochester, and I wanted to be a fireman, following his footsteps. But at the time, there was a show, Hill Street Blues. I don't know if anybody remembers that show. I got hooked on it, and law enforcement was something I wanted to pursue. So I went off to Oswego, got a 4-year degree in bachelor's in criminal justice, and decided I wanted to get into the Secret Service. And at the time, the Secret Service wasn't hiring, so I went to the library and started pulling pamphlets out, and one of the pamphlets was the U.S. Marshals. I had never heard of the agency before. So I took the test. I graduated in '87, took the exam, and did well on it. And within a year after I graduated, I ended up assigned to the New York City office. And I spent 4 years in New York City from '88 to '92, and transferred back up here in '92 and became the supervisor, Aaron's position now. So I was the supervisor for about 15 years, and when President Obama was elected, I put my name in for the U.S. Marshal position, because the position I hold now is a presidentially appointed position. There's 94 districts, and each district is held by a U.S. Marshal, like the U.S. Attorney. So the long and short of it, I got some support behind me, and Senator Schumer ultimately recommended my name to the President, and in 2010, I was appointed to the position of U.S. Marshal. So that's kind of how I ended up in this position. And Aaron, if you want to just give him a little bit of a background on how you got to your spot.
Yeah, I've been with the Marshal Service 8 years, a little over 8 years now. I started in the District of Columbia. When I was in college, they had a program where they were trying to hire deputy marshals for big offices because they were short-staffed. Chicago, Los Angeles, Southern District, New York, and D.C. I flew to D.C., did an interview, went through the whole process. And 9 months later, I was in the Academy of Georgia getting ready to be Deputy U.S. Marshal, which is lightning fast for the federal government. 9 months.
1757.
Lightning fast. So from there, I spent 8 years there dealing with prisoners in D.C. The way it's broken down is there's a Superior Court and a Federal Court because there's no sheriff's office in D.C. So I was assigned to Superior Court, so we handled everything from prostitution to traffic to murder. So it was the whole gambit. We're seeing 400 prisoners a day. So I did that for 2 years there, and then was assigned to judicial security, dealing with judges and courthouse renovations and things like that. And then finished up by doing evictions in the district. And about 1.5 years ago, the supervisor job opened up here. My family's from New York. I put in for the position, and Marshal Salinas selected me.
Good.
Now
how does this work?
To you.
So that's a little bit how we got to the position. I'm going to put a slideshow up here. We're just going to talk, and please answer questions because it's much more interesting, I think, if people engage and ask questions. So that's a little bit about how, which way do I got to go on this? Okay, so that's just some of the background on the U.S. Marshal Service. Here in Western New York, it's myself. I have a chief deputy, and I have 3 supervisors. There's 2 offices, one here at the Federal Building in Rochester and one at the U.S. Courthouse in Buffalo. And one of the main, I have about 35 deputy marshals that report to Aaron, and about 80 court security officers who protect the federal courthouses. If you've ever been to the courthouses in Buffalo and Rochester, you have to go through screening. They screen you for weapons, any contraband that you go in. So that's what the district is like. some of the duties and responsibilities we have. The main priority that we have is to protect the federal judges. Each district we have a court here in Rochester and one in Buffalo. And there's 17 federal judges that handle all the federal crimes that are committed in Western New York. Now, Western New York has 17 counties, so anybody that's arrested federally, whether it's by us, the Secret Service, the FBI, DEA, whether it's for bank robbery, drugs, terrorism, if they get charged federally, they have to go to federal court. And the main responsibility we have is protecting the judges that handle the cases. If somebody commits a crime, they go before a judge, and if the judge holds them in custody and doesn't give them bail, they become the custody of the US Marshal. Right now we have about 500 federal defendants between Buffalo and Rochester that are going through the process now, from terrorism to homicide to drugs. And it's our responsibility to keep them in custody. And we do that, you know, at the federal courthouses there. I'm going to break off now, and how we do this is we don't have a federal jail here in Western New York. So with the 500 defendants that are held in custody, we have to put them in local jails. So I utilize 13 county jails in the Western District. We use the Monroe County Jail, the Steuben County Jail, Allegheny, Yates County, and I actually contract with the sheriff of each county, and we have to pay the county a daily rate so the federal prisoners were allowed to use their jails. When we bring them in to and from court, and I'm going to let Aaron demonstrate this. Do we have any volunteers that might want to come up? No? John, come on up here. So like I said, when somebody's held in custody, we put them in the local jails. And at the courthouses, we actually have a full secure lockup here at the federal courthouse. So we bring them over in the morning, we put them in the lockup, and Aaron and the deputies, you know, we have cameras, and it's just like being in a local jail, and we got to bring them to and from court. And we treat every prisoner the same, whether they're in for a white-collar crime or for terrorism. We don't mess around. We put them in full restraints because in this day and age, you know, the assaults against law enforcement, the chief can attest to this, it's gone up in the last several years. So,
how come he's smiling?
well,
I would be too, guys.
yeah.
Ready?
So he's going to give him orders like he's picking him up and taking him to jail.
Hands on the wall. First, I'm going to search him, make sure he doesn't have any weapons. And then if he makes any sudden moves, I get to pin him right against the wall. But I don't think he's going to do that.
No, go ahead, try,
And
guys.
this will only hurt him just a little bit.
And it's very important. Usually he's with, you know, one or two deputies. When I first became marshal, one of my deputies over in Buffalo, they were doing exactly this to a defendant, and he got a break, and he actually broke one of my deputies' noses. Whoa. Yeah, he turned around and assaulted him just like that, and he didn't have a chance.
Against the wall, so we'll fall down. Pick this foot up. Switch. All right. Turn around.
So you could see, I mean,
Remember, I called you in the service, don't volunteer for anything.
now, Don, you think you could run in those? I mean, we don't need you to get hurt, but do you think you could? You think you could?
Just a little bit.
Well, a little bit. You know, when there's videotapes when federal defendants get sent off to federal prison and they're doing time, there's actual videotapes where they'll take string and they'll tie them around their ankles, simulating that they have the ankle bracelets on, and you can actually see them in the yard practicing running. And we've had defendants as they're transporting to hospital visits or, you know, to different places where they've actually taken off and ran in those. And, you know, like I said, just because somebody's in full restraint, you can't take your eyes off them for 1 second.
I better not see that on the internet, lady. She just took a picture.
All you need is a number.
Yep.
Remind you. Yeah.
You look good in orange, Don. Orange.
So that's how we handle them in court. You've all seen the movie Tommy Lee Jones and Gunsmoke?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Gunsmoke?
Yeah.
He was a...
We cuff them in the back when we make arrests on the street. So we have a fugitive unit.
Transporting them, they're in the front.
What's that?
When you're transporting them, they're in the front.
Well, it depends. If we make an arrest on the street, we always cuff them behind the back. And then if we have time or we have enough people and we got a long transport, each deputy has a full set of restraints in their vehicle, and they can put them in full restraints so they can't try to slip out of them. So that's how we handle the prisoners to and from court. So that, like, the main responsibility is to keep the judges safe. Each federal judge, I have a judicial security inspector, and back about 6 years ago, there was a federal judge up in Chicago, and she was handling a civil case. And the defendant in the case, or the plaintiff, I can't remember which of the two, didn't like how she ruled the decision. So he broke into her house looking for her and actually killed her mother, husband and mother. Looking for the judge, broke in, and this is going back several years ago. And Congress, after that, gave the Marshal Service a lot more money to start protecting the federal judges. So anytime there's a threat and the judges are constantly getting inappropriate emails and communications and phone calls, we handle the threat just as if the Secret Service is protecting the president. We investigate it with the FBI, and if we deem it as a credible threat, we actually will protect the judge and his or her family until we can eliminate the threat or make an arrest. And we've done that here in this district a few times. Judge Saragusa, who's an Arundicoit native, he had
He's a Raiders fan.
Is he a Rangers fan?
No, Raiders.
Oh, Raiders. Okay. He had a significant threat years ago, and I had to bring in extra deputies from all over the country, not only to protect the judge, but to protect his wife and children until we actually made an arrest on that case. So that's one of the main responsibilities, is to protect not only the judges, but the federal prosecutors, who are called United States attorneys. We protect them as well, who are prosecuting the case.
Do you hear about the local judges or just the federal judges? Because we had a meeting here, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, where the sheriff said that there was somebody who threatened a local judge who was now moved on to.
Yeah, that would fall under the sheriff's responsibility. But we've gone out to Yates County and trained the Yates County Sheriff's investigators on kind of how we handle any threats that come to a federal judge. And we have a matrix that we put it through, and we send it to headquarters. And if we deem it's a credible threat, like I said, we'll do a full protection detail. Yep.
Years ago, when my sister-in-law passed away, they brought in a prisoner, and his ankles were up to his hands and everything. They had the chain.
Okay. Well, he may have been somebody that tried to escape before, or may have assaulted a police officer in the past, because there's more secure ways to handle inmates and prisoners if they've assaulted. Like the prisoner that assaulted one of my deputies here, we put a black box, it's called, and it goes over the handcuff keys, so they can't pick the locks on the handcuffs. So that may have been the case with that prisoner.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Over the Marshal Service, each district has prisoner. We have about, well, I think it's more now. It's probably up to 70,000 federal defendants that are in custody. I already talked to you about how we handle them. We have to take them to the hospital and pay all their medical expenses. Some of the court cases take years before they're disposed of. A typical federal case here, if somebody's arrested today on a federal crime, it takes about 2 years for the judge to finally either sentence them, and then we send them off to the Bureau of Prisons and they can start doing their time.
If there's a prisoner in a prison, obviously, and he gets to go to a funeral or something of that nature, who takes him?
Well, we would have to. It would have to be court ordered, and how it works in the federal system is the family has to prepay the Marshal Service any of the security costs.
Okay.
So
Okay.
typically, it could get pretty costly because it's a private viewing, there's no other family members there, but if one of the judges orders us to do it, before I make that decision, this family has to prepay the security of the deputies that would take them.
It's different for in the state, though.
Yeah.
State road.
Yep. Yep. That's just deputies in court. That's how we handle them. You know, there's always at least 2 deputies with them. That's the Con Air. I want to get to, I talked to you about some of the other protectees. We also protect the federal drug czar. You guys have probably never heard of a drug czar, have you? The president appoints a drug czar, and we protect him. We protect the deputy attorney general, any of the Supreme Court justices. When they travel outside of Washington, D.C., we protect them. In fact, Justice Scalia, who just passed away, was in town last summer. He came to the U of R and did a speech, maybe it was 2 summers ago, and he did a speech at the U of R Law School, and I picked him up at the airport along with a couple other deputies, and we protected him the whole day he was here and when he flew back to Washington. These are just some. The Witness Security Program, the U.S. Marshals handle the Witness Security Program. If somebody goes into the program, the Marshal Service relocates them, gets them new identity. Once they're done testifying in court, they ship them somewhere in the United States. They strip him or her of all their identity, and they got to live by the rules. They can't go back to the area against anyone they've testified against. Back when I first became a deputy, before I became the Marshal, Rudy Giuliani was the U.S. Attorney in Manhattan at the time, and he was prosecuting all the federal, or all the mafia gangsters in New York. And that was a big push. I actually got a chance when I was a deputy. I worked in the Witness Security Program when Sammy the Bull Gravano testified against all the the mobsters, and I actually got a chance to be with him when he was testifying, and he was a tough guy. We had him stashed, and he was a boxer, and he always wanted to box the deputies that were protecting him, but I wouldn't. I said, I'll go in the ring, but I'm going to keep my gun on. So the Marshal Service does the WITSEC program.
Do they, I know they changed the identity, but do they have any official, like social security cards or all those things they changed to?
Yeah, they just wipe everything away and they give you a completely new identity. And a lot of the people in the program have a real hard time following the rules. They've never lost a witness in the program. Correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, but most of them can't follow the rules, and they go off on their own, and they end up going back to the areas, and bad things happen to them. We have, the Marshal Service has a canine unit, and I have one of my deputies here has a black lab. Is she in here?
I don't think she's on that. I think
She's on that
Narissa's
one. Narissa.
They took that one before she volunteered.
Yeah, we had a dog before Narissa. Tim is the dog handler out of Buffalo, and they go. ATF pays for the dog, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and they're strictly bomb and gun sniffing dogs, and they're really, really good. Tim has been to the Super Bowl, any of the high priority, the Indianapolis 500. These dogs go all over the country. We send them to high threat trials, the Boston bombing trial. When they had that trial in Boston, the dogs were all there, sniffing around the courthouse. The dog sniffs around our federal courthouse in Buffalo every morning, and it comes here once or twice a week, and they're really good working dogs.
How do they know a gun?
They're trained for, and I don't know all the specifics, but the powder, if the gun has ever been fired, and the bullets too. But they're trained for over 19,000 different odors, and they don't eat until they actually alert on something. So Tim takes the dog home with him, and he's got to train him during the day. And the dogs, will not eat unless, he hides stuff around, courthouse, and that's how they work for food. So.
They also have
sniff for drugs?
No, these are strictly labs that are only for explosives and guns.
Is there a reason they're all labs?
They're one of the best dogs for that.
For that? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Now, most police departments, I don't know, do you have canines here, Chief? You not anymore? They use Shepherds and Malinois because they're patrol dogs and,
Their temperament is very
And
yeah,
low.
They're
Oh,
much
yeah.
faster too.
yeah. And these dogs are great around, you know, around the judges and the people that are coming into courts.
Do they sniff out, was it phosphates? Is that what they sniff out from bombs and stuff? Is that part of it?
There's all different types of chemicals that they,
Any accelerant,
Oh, okay.
they can sniff it out.
yeah. That's a little bit about the
Are they
program.
trained in Indiana? Is it Indiana where they get trained?
They're trained in Front Royal, Virginia, is where the ATF Academy has their, it's a huge academy, and and the handler has to go there for, I think, around 3 months. It's a long program, and it's very intensive, and they have to go down for recertification every 6 months. The last dog we had, Narissa, she worked for 2 years, and it's a funny story. Tim went to Detroit on a special assignment. I can't remember what was going on there. It was the World Series All-Star
It
game.
might have been the Thanksgiving football game.
There was some a big event, and she just quit. She didn't want to work anymore. Literally went out there and just, that's it. That was it. I'm done. I'm retiring.
Wow.
And she worked for 2 years, and she just probably wanted to go home and be a dog. And so he had to go all the way back to the school for another summer. It's expensive, and yeah. This is her right here, and that's the handler out of Buffalo. But yeah, she just went to Detroit and said, "That's it, I'm retiring." Yeah. Now he still has that dog, and plus he's got another one.
When you're in court and stuff like that, you obviously have guns.
Right.
Does that bother the dog?
No,
I mean,
the dogs don't come into court. They,
it's either you or them, right?
yes,
Okay.
exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But they're great to be around. This is our SWAT team. The U.S. Marshals have a special operations group. It's essentially a SWAT team, and they're out of Louisiana. I actually served on this team for 12 years before I transferred up here. I got out right before 9/11. And these guys go all over the country on special details. I've been to Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, overseas to the Bahamas. Every time a hurricane goes through the Virgin Islands, because that's U.S. territory and U.S. Marshals have authority over there, and Puerto Rico, whenever the hurricanes go through there, power is lost and there's all kinds of looting going on. And the Attorney General always orders this team to go down and restore order. And I was in the Virgin Islands 3 times. I was in Puerto Rico twice. And we actually worked with the police department on any kind of 911 calls until the order was restored. Went out to the LA riots when Rodney King was, the officers were acquitted. This team went out there when they started rioting out in LA. So they respond to national disturbance. They went over to Iraq when Saddam Hussein was on the run, and they worked on the ground with the Rangers and the military to try to locate him. And then when they finally captured him, they had no security systems set up in Iraq for court. And they actually built a secure courthouse, and they trained the Iraqi police officers on security, taking them in and out of court, how to protect the judges, how to protect the prosecutors. So they really do a lot of interesting things, and a lot of them are ex-military. And it's a good unit to be on, and if you're young, I was single at the time, and I traveled 1 year, 9 months out of the year with this unit, all over the place. What do we got here? Fugitive investigations. This is one of our second priorities. Each U.S. Marshal Service has a task force. Here in Rochester, we have a fugitive task force, and it's head up by the Marshal Service, but I have two New York State troopers on it. I have 2 Monroe County Sheriff's deputies, 2 Rochester police officers. I have an agent from the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, DMV investigators. So there's about 15 investigators, and Aaron actually supervises the unit. And each and every day, they meet at the office, and they're going after the worst of the worst. Here we arrest about 400 violent felony fugitives a year. And we're going after anybody that's committed homicides. The RPD, if there's a homicide here in the city and they have a suspect, they'll turn it over to the police officers that are on the task force. And most of them we catch out of state. A lot of them we're catching here. But it's a very, very good unit. They all work together. They train together each year. And it's dangerous. In the last 8 years, in every district, there's 94 US Marshal districts has a task force like this. And in the last, like I said, 8 years, we've lost about 8 to 10, 13 deputy US Marshals and task force officers have been killed in the line of duty, going into houses, going into motel rooms. In fact, when's the anniversary for Josie Wells? He's a deputy.
He's on Thursday, Perry was today.
Yeah. On this Thursday, there was a young deputy. He was from Mississippi, just got married. His wife was pregnant. He went on a special assignment to Louisiana, Baton Rouge, I think. And they were going after an individual on a murder warrant. And when they went into the hotel room, and I'm going to let Aaron show you how we go into the hotel rooms in a minute. When they went into the hotel room, they did all the right things. He was behind the door. They opened the door, and as they went in, he basically executed this young deputy marshal, shot him right in the back of the head. So it's a very, very dangerous job, and the chief can attest to that. You know, threats and assaults against law enforcement. They just shot at a deputy yesterday in Genesee County. So it's a dangerous, this is the most dangerous part of our job. And you know, we teach them slow things slow. Okay, if you know somebody's in a house, unless he's attacking somebody, you know, we go in as a last resort. We take our time. We give the deputies as much training as they need, and they do a great job because, like I said, they work together every day, but more importantly, they train together when they're not out on the streets. So, you want to go over some of the equipment?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Big mouth for this, right?
Yeah.
I was at the train station, and I don't know if it's the marshals, do you go on to the trains looking for fugitives? Because that's what they told me, but I don't remember if they were US Marshals or not.
We
The
have.
Federal Air Marshals, they have what's called Viper teams, and they patrol the trains. That's probably who they were. I mean,
They
I'll go on a
suspected
train.
somebody was on the train.
Yeah.
We'll go on a train and for someone.
And they
That's
walked
what
the
it
whole
is.
train.
Yeah, we'll go anywhere we have to, and we find them hiding in all kinds of places. You know, we've gone into houses, they'll cut holes in the floors. They've gone into refrigerators, underneath kitchen sinks, up in attics. I mean, it's amazing. In a dryer. I mean, we could tell you stories where, because, yeah, the people we're going after, usually this is the last place they're going away for a long time, and we're going after very violent suspects. So, you want to show them some of the equipment?
Yeah. This is what I have with me every day in the back of my car. I don't have to wear it whenever we go in a house. This is similar to the chiefs or any police officers' duty belt and set up for what I need. Holster, handcuffs, rubber gloves, tourniquet, and extra ammo. This is the big heavy vest. This is about, when it's fully loaded, about 30 pounds I'm walking around with.
Want to put it on, Don?
Sure. I've been working out, all right?
Is it Kevlar?
This is Kevlar, yep, it's got two Kevlar inserts, one in the front, one in the back.
Is it a
Now,
waste
you
how
went
much?
from good guy, you went from bad guy to good guy real quick.
Waste how much?
It's about 50 pounds. 50.
50, 50?
Yep.
Yeah,
with-
that one's gonna be 35 without the plate, this one fully loaded will be about 50. This has got
Yeah.
steel plates, this is gonna stop any rifle or shotgun round. This will stop most shotgun rounds,
XCs.
most
Yeah.
pistol rounds.
They're heavy.
So this is set up the way I like it. Taser on the right side.
Oh, yeah, do that to him.
No, no.
So this is a taser. All martial service employees are issued a taser. We're taught how to learn it. We're all tased. If you want to see a funny video, just watch any cop being tased. But what this does is, there's no cartridge on it, so it's not going to shoot anything out, but it's going to be shown a 5-second, basically electrical shock, and it's going to take every muscle in your body, it's going to clinch it all at once. It's really hard to fight someone all the muscles are clinched up. So that extra ammo, and then after the marshal was talking about where we had deputies come in line of duty, the marshals reevaluated everything. They said, well, what can we do to fix the problem of people being injured and hurt? So they issued us all tourniquets and first aid kits, and we're all trained on them. I went down to Georgia. They taught me, I went through a whole first aid class on how to treat myself and how to treat other people for injuries overshot. And then extra ammo, radio, gloves, because most of the places that we go are pretty nasty, so we don't want to touch anything with our bare hands. And that's the best. That's what.
And when they go to the range to shoot, they're wearing all their equipment because we want them to train as if it's real life. And a lot of times what they'll have them do is get their heart rate up before they shoot. You know, do some jumping jacks, do some push-ups, because in a situation, the first thing your adrenaline's going to go up, and if you, God forbid, you have to use force, your heart rate's going to be up. So that's how we train them. And God forbid, knock on wood, we haven't had any significant incidents here in this district. We've had some close calls. We've had some fugitives commit suicide as the teams were going in. We had a suspect in Buffalo that the team in Buffalo has the same task force we have here. He was wanted for some sex offenses, and as they made entry, he was in the basement, and he just said, "I don't want to go back to prison," and he shot himself. So.
Do I make this vest look good?
Yeah.
Of course you do.
Marvelous.
So while everyone's suited up and stuff, we all have our plans of how we're going to enter a house and do different things.
I love it.
I didn't need that, Jim.
So depending on what everyone's role is, and it's all discussed ahead of time, one person's going to have a shield, a different person's going to have a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to go stab a knife,
Do what?
your vest stab.
No, that's not going to stop a knife. A knife will penetrate that vest. The steel plates it will not. Another person's going to have a ram. The person who has a shield isn't going to have a ram because you can't do too many things at once. So obviously the shield will be up front. We bring all this stuff up to every house that we go to if we think that's where the fugitive is, because if it's in the car or back at the office, it doesn't do anyone any good. So we always have a shield guy, always have a ram guy, bring it all up, we'll knock on the door, and then based on, I know what the marshal's gonna do, I know what everyone else is gonna do, they know what I'm gonna do, and that's how we search the house looking for the fugitive. Sometimes we need additional tools. And we don't always bring these up to the house because we need our hands, but this is a ladder. It's compact, it can hold 300 pounds. It can go up if we need to get into an attic or something.
Yeah, it goes pretty
I
high.
like that.
So it's real quick. It can fit in the back of our car, it can fit in the backpack and collapses if we don't need it. And then for attics and stuff, we don't like to stick our head in an attic because it's not safe. So what the marshal developed and our district bought was basically a video camera. It's got a little pole on it.
Do you wear helmets?
We do wear helmets depending on situation. Not always. The person who has the shield is always going to have a helmet because the shield is only going to protect so much. But so I just tested it today, so I know it works.
You mind if I take a picture?
No, go ahead. You guys can stand up and
Yeah, come
come
on.
on up if anybody wants to take a picture.
I have a question while you're putting it together. How much does your battering ram weigh? 60 pounds?
This is about
65.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy,
Yeah.
but it works. Takes doors down. And this is a great tool. They didn't have this back when I was. Well, there was one quick story. We were searching a house one time, and it was a very small. It was a double house, but he lived on the front, and we knew he was in there, but he was up in the ceiling in the attics, and we actually left, and something just didn't sit right with me and the other guy that was there. We said, he's got to be in there somewhere. He's got to be. We just didn't. So we started pushing the ceiling up. It was plexiglass. Look down, and we can see him all the way at the end. Really could see him there. But Aaron will explain, if we had this then, You know, it's much more, it's very dangerous to stick your head up there and look through, but he's going to explain how this works.
We used this a couple weeks ago, the Genesee school shooting, the Boys and Girls Club shooting. We got one of those warrants, and we heard one of the guys was in the house. We went there, we searched the whole thing high and low, and we knew he was there. We were 100% positive he was there. There's an attic, we could see some of the dust and stuff, you know, on the ground. So we got the camera, we stuck it in the ceiling, and you can see what kind of picture we're getting. It's pretty clear. So you can see what's going on, and it's got infrared on it also, so if it's dark up there, which most attics are, it's gonna light up, and his eyes are just glowing at us. And after that, he knew the gig was up because we weren't leaving. State police was with us, they had a K-9, not one of the labs, a real mean one. Said, basically told him, hey, the gig is up, come on out. He came out, surrendered, and we didn't have to expose ourselves to any injury, which is the absolute goal of this.
Yeah.
this tool.
It's worth every penny. You know, it's worth every penny. So those are some of the tools that Aaron and his team uses each and every day, and it does keep them safe. You know, they're very good at what they do. Very proud of their work.
What is one, what does that cost? Just curious.
When you guys bought it, probably about $700.
Yeah. Yeah.
Worth every nickel of it.
Yep.
It is.
Yeah.
We have
Sure.
2 of these in the district.
Yeah, one in Buffalo, one in Rochester. That reminds me of another story. I like to tell stories. There was another case we worked. He was wanted out of Georgia on a gun charge, and he lived in an attic. The attic was furnished. He had a bed up there, and we got a tip that he was up there. And it was, you open the door, and there's a flight of stairs that go up, and the attic bedroom was up there. We go up the steps, and the TV's on. There's a cigarette butt, half smoked, next to the TV, but he's not there. So we're looking around, and there was a crawl space in the attic, and there was a hole cut. And you looked in, and there was a 9mm gun at the end of the hole. So we're like, all right, he's got to be all the way down at the end. We didn't have one of these at the time. So there's nobody's going to go in there. So we said, oh man, we must have just missed him. So we're talking, like, all right, guys, you know what? Let's go to lunch. Let's get out of here. So I said, 2 of you guys go in the car and kind of peel out in there. So we go down to the bottom of the steps. We shut the door and we just wait. 3 of us just wait. We're sitting waiting. We start hearing some movement up there. We go back upstairs. Well, luckily, he was coming out butt first. He wasn't coming out with his head. So he was halfway out, his legs. So we pull him out. We take him into custody, right? We go to the end. There was a loaded AK-47 at the very end of the crawl space. True story. So we said to him, you know, he goes, I saw you guys coming. He heard us get out of the car. And he said, well, what if we would have, you know, went down there? He says, I don't know what I would have done. Probably would have started shooting, but you know, that thing would have been handy in that
What
case.
kind of range is that got? How far can you see?
See with this?
Yeah. Stuck in an attic, could you see all the way?
You can see from one end to another
Okay.
without any issue.
Can you like zoom? You like a zoom?
I've never had to. I don't think it does zoom. This doesn't zoom. It can get brighter and darker, and it actually can shine a light, so you can get pretty good range out of it.
Yeah.
So it's like a periscope.
It's exactly like a periscope. It's a handheld periscope.
The other thing we do is there's a law that came in 2007. Adam Walsh, who did the show, the Fugitive show. There's an Adam Walsh Child Protection and Safety Act, and that essentially gave the U.S. Marshals the primary responsibility to track sex offenders. Sex offenders that get released from prison and kind of go off the radar. When somebody is a sex offender and they do their time in prison, when they get out, they have to report. If they want to live here in the town of Arundicourt, they got to come see the chief and say, I'm going to live on Titus Avenue. Well, what's been happening is there's a good majority of them that get out of prison in all different states, and they just take off. They're off the radar. So this new law now gives the Marshal Service the authority to track them down. And each district has a sex offender investigator. And here in Western New York, in 17 counties, we've gone into 11 of the counties and worked with the sheriff of each county, and we've actually knocked on every sex offender's door that's supposed to be living where they're, you know, at their address. We've verified if they're there, and we're finding about 10 to 15% of them aren't living where they're supposed to. And when they're not, we get a warrant for them, and that's when Aaron and his team come in. And it's been very successful. We've tracked down a lot of dangerous sex offenders that, to me, they're not going to change their stripes when they get out. They flee the state because they don't want to be monitored. They want to go out and reoffend, and it's really protecting, most importantly, a lot of our children.
I guess tonight's news gave you a little intel, didn't it?
What's that?
I guess tonight's news, the symbols on the kitty toys.
Oh, I didn't see that. Was it on?
10-10.
Was it?
Yeah, you know about that?
No, I didn't get a chance to see it. No.
There's 3 symbols. One's a double heart in a circle, and the other 2, I don't know what they are, but the one on the left they described as "I like little boys," the one in the middle, "I like little girls."
Wow.
The one on the right is "I like girls" or something like that.
Yeah.
But you'll probably get a bullet in that head.
Yeah, yeah.
It's gotta help you out a little.
Oh,
They speak a different language on social media.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's what that was supposed to be for, is a way for them to communicate.
Yeah. Yeah. They're very dangerous. I was saying, in a lot of the task forces, a lot of the fugitives we're going after that are committing suicide when we arrest them are the sex offenders, because they're getting hit with some very serious federal time, and when they go off to federal prison, the other prisoners don't like them, and they don't. I'm not saying that stuff goes on in prison, but when sex offenders go away, they have a tough time dealing with the time, and we're finding a lot of them don't want to go back to prison. You guys remember Bucky Phillips?
Yep.
Yeah. Running around shooting state troopers. Yeah, that was over in Chautauqua County on the western end of the district. He was back and forth between Pennsylvania. We were very heavily involved in helping locate him just over the line in Pennsylvania. He was a bad guy. That's old transport. But the broad range of duties, we also do extraditions. So we have offices in Mexico City, Jamaica. We're going to get one up in Canada, Dominican Republic. We're in Interpol overseas in France. And the Marshal Service is responsible for all extraditions. If somebody commits a crime here in the United States and they flee to another country, and we have an extradition agreement with that country, the Marshal Service is responsible for bringing them back here to the U.S. And I've gone over to France. His name was James Kopp. He killed an abortion doctor years ago in Buffalo, and he actually took a shot at one of the doctors here, and he was ultimately arrested in Paris, France. And I got a chance to go over there and bring him back to the United States. And I've been to Finland and the Bahamas on extraditions. I don't know if you've been on any?
I've been to the Western District of New York and DC.
The next extradition, Aaron's going on the next extradition. If we have one well, right now it's going to, we're
Ireland, hopefully.
Ireland, okay.
For St. Patty's Day?
If the timing works, the timing works. It's out of my control.
So that's essentially the 3 main responsibilities we have. It's a great job. Law enforcement you're not going to get rich, but each and every day you wake up and you do something different. And that's one of the things I loved about law enforcement is you never know what you're going to run across. It's not like you're sitting in a desk, which is good, but I can't sit still for a few minutes. And like I said, it's a great job. It's a great career. Federal law enforcement, any law enforcement, we work with all different agencies. We work with the Arundicoit Police all the time, and vice versa. We're all part of the same team, whether our badges are round and theirs are square. It doesn't matter. Cops are cops, federal, state, or local. So it's a great job, and I appreciate everybody's time. Any questions?
What makes, let's say this, you take care of the federal judges and the federal prisoners. What makes a federal prisoner versus a state prisoner?
On the crime, it depends what crimes come.
We have murderers here, just like,
Yeah.
and they have murders
Yeah, if there's a drug conspiracy, let's say there's a group of individuals selling drugs, and part of their drug dealing is they want to retaliate against somebody that may have stolen drugs or money from them, and they conspire, and it's an organization, it's a RICO charge, and that gives the authority of the U.S. Attorney's Office to prosecute a crime for murder federally. So there's a lot of these drug organizations where the DEA and the FBI, you know, they're not going after the guy that's selling on the corner. They may arrest him, but they want to get the source of supply. And it's a very in-depth investigation. Sometimes it takes years. And when they end up prosecuting a drug organization, it's usually multi-defendant. We just had a trial in Buffalo where there was a street gang that was arrested. And it was 19 defendants, and they had committed numerous homicides in the city of Buffalo, just like I said, for people who have ripped them off, sold them short on money or drugs, and the trial just ended in Buffalo, and they were all convicted. So that's how a drug crime with murder would come. Then bank robberies, the FBI has authority if somebody uses a gun in a bank robbery, the FBI would arrest them. Secret Service does counterfeiting. So there's all different types of federal laws that, you know, the U.S. Attorney's Office here decides which ones they're going to prosecute. Yeah.
Are there many female marshals?
Yeah, my supervisor in Buffalo, Becky Smith, she was a supervisor here. She's a supervisor, and I have a female inspector. She just retired. So nationwide, I don't know what our percentages are right here in this district.
It's actually above the national average. I don't know what the national average is, but this now it's above
Yeah.
the national average.
Yeah, so my supervisor in Buffalo, Erin's counterpart, she runs the Buffalo office, and I have two other female deputies over there. So there's a good percentage that are females. Yep.
What's the training facility?
Our training, it's a good question. We train at the Federal Law Enforcement Academy in Georgia, Southeast Georgia in Brunswick. It's about an hour north of Jacksonville, and the training's about 20 weeks. And every federal law enforcement agency trains there except for the FBI, who has their own facility in Quantico. So it's in Southeast Georgia. It's a huge facility, and you go there for 20 weeks. It's the first 8 weeks it's college. It's you know, criminal law. It's like being in college again, and then the next 8 weeks is kind of like a basic training where you're at the US Marshals Academy. A lot of physical fitness, a lot of shooting, driving, defensive tactics.
Another one too. For
Sure.
the judges, when you protect a judge, and do you protect them in their home, or do you move them to a safe house?
It depends. It depends how significant the threat is. Typically, the judges don't like to leave their residence, so with Judge Siragusa's case, we actually were outside his house 24/7 and until we eliminate threats, just like when the Secret Service protects the president and his wife. So typically, it's at their residence.
How many officers would protect him?
Depends. We had a detail, like I said, I had to bring in deputy marshals from other districts, and I think at that time the detail, because it's a 24-hour detail that's going on, I think we had about 20 operational personnel between the night shift and the day shift, because the judge had young kids too, and if the kids had to go somewhere, if they were separated, you got to have enough people to make sure that you can do the job correctly. So, yes, sir.
First, I want to say thank you to both of you,
Sure.
Chief Officer, for your service.
Mhm.
Two questions, neither are connected.
Okay.
Literally. First one, what does it cost to house a federal prisoner in a
Good question.
county facility? The second question, air marshals, are they connected to your unit?
Okay, second question. The air marshals used to fall under the U.S. Marshal Service in the late 60s, I believe, but that's a separate agency right now. They work for TSA, and it's, I think they're under, what branch are they under? Homeland Security, yeah. But years and years ago, that was part of the duties of the Marshal Service, so that's a separate agency. We contract with the county sheriff. We pay approximately $100 a day on average to the counties, and there's 13 counties here that I utilize. So it's about between $95 and $100 a day that we pay for each prisoner. So it's quite costly. And like I said, it takes about 2 years for a case to get disposed of. So they're sitting in the county jails for 6, 7, sometimes 800 days at a cost of $100 a day.
36,000 a year.
Yep, see, I'm not that smart. I can't add that quick.
We're also responsible for any medical expenses that they occur. And that can get-
Yeah, medical could get very, very costly. I'll get you in a sec. There was a fugitive we were looking for years. He was wanted here for some white-collar crime, and we just couldn't track this guy. He ends up getting sick, and he goes in New Orleans. He goes to the US Marshal. He wants to surrender. Guess why? He's free medical, and he surrendered, and now he's off in federal prison, and he'll probably live to be 100. But
If and when you ever work in concert with, say, the FBI,
Mhm.
Secret Service, is there a chain of command set up? Does somebody automatically become in charge? Or?
yeah, like for instance, the Secret Service, we've gone on details with them. It depends whose mission it is, whose responsibility it is. If it's the Secret Service protecting the president, whenever all the heads of the states come to the UN every year for the General Assembly, they come for like 2 weeks to New York. We send deputies down there, but that would be the Secret Service's responsibility. If the FBI has an assignment and they're short-handed, they need deputy marshals. Tell me what you need. The FBI would be in charge. If I needed some extra law enforcement officers and I was running the detail, it would be my show. If the chief needed something in a Rundecoit, it's his jurisdiction. But we don't. There's no in-house fighting. It doesn't happen here, right, Chief? Correct me if I'm wrong. And federal, state, and local, I've never seen anything. And I've been to other areas of the country where you see some headbutting and you see some personalities that don't jive. It just doesn't happen here in Monroe County in Western New York. The agency heads are all. There's no egos. It's just everybody wants to get the job done, and I think that filters down through the ranks too. If they see the chiefs and the marshals and the sheriff getting along, the officers on the street, the deputies on the street they're gonna get along.
Another one.
Sure.
Nancy Reagan's funeral is coming up. Who's going to be in charge of protecting all the heads of states? And
That would be the Secret Service. Now that would be in D.C. I think I didn't see the.
In California.
Oh, that's right. So that would be the Secret Service would have to coordinate that with the local. I'm sure the local law enforcement would pitch in whenever the president comes to town. All the Secret Service here is a very small agency. They don't have more than 5 agents between Buffalo and Rochester. And if the president ever comes here, they always lean on the state police and the local police officers to help them out. So.
One quick one.
Sure.
Why do you always hear the rumors that prisoners want to go to a federal pen instead of state? I've heard it 100 times.
Well, I've been to a lot of the federal prisons, and they're fairly new. Some of the state prisons here in New York, like Attica, they're very old. Auburn is a very old facility. We've been there. I think that has a lot to do with it. The closest one here is in McKean, Pennsylvania, which is about 2 hours south here in Bradford. And they have a camp, but if you're doing
One up in
Raybrook.
That's still there, it's still federal.
Yep, and then there's one in Otisville, New York, which is just outside. I don't know if it's Orange County or Westchester. Orange County. So those are the 3 that are close here to Western New York. But I think that has a lot to do with it.
I know. I've been around because we go to Lake Placid all the time.
Yeah.
So I've been, in that vicinity.
In Raybrook, yep.
There's a prison, that would be a place to go.
Yeah, yeah.
Gorgeous.
But I think that's probably why you hear that.
Because they're new.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Good.
Anything else? Well, I just want to build, first of all, thank you both, but I want to build on something that the Marshal said earlier, is that in Monroe County in particular, we meet twice a month at 2 different types of meetings that we have. And regardless of the level, if you will, of the law enforcement agency, whether it's federal, state, or local, the cooperation is exceptional. And that's something you hear quite frequently, especially from those law enforcement representatives who may have been transferred from another location to here. They've never seen anything quite like what occurs in Monroe County. And really that goes back to the likes of chiefs, 30 years ago when they created what we call the Law Enforcement Council, and then also about 30 years ago when Project Exile was implemented with Gary Mervis and Judge Saragosa in
That's
regards to that. So twice a month, you'll see us, whether it's the FBI and the US Marshal Service and their representatives and local police chiefs and other agencies getting together and talking about our mission. And the Marshal is absolutely correct because it's what is best going to serve the public. So we're